Welcome back. So far today we've talked about complementary, meaning two angles whose sum equals 90. We've talked about supplementary, which means two angles whose sum equals 180. So again, when I ask you what supplementary is, I don't want to hear it means equals 180. It has to be two angles that add to equal 180. Okay? All right, so now let's look at what this would look like if we needed to do it as a proof. Okay? Given angle HMS and angle SMJ are adjacent supplementary angles, the measure of angle HMS equals 7x minus 3, and the measure of angle SMJ equals 3x plus 13. Prove the measure of angle HMS equals 116 degrees. Okay? So the very first thing I see there is the angle HMS and angle SMJ are adjacent supplementary angles. So I'm going to write that as my first given. Angle HMS and angle SMJ are adjacent. I'm going to abbreviate because it's little. And supplementary angles. And I can say that because it was given. And if they haven't given me a picture when I do a proof, I like to, as I put my given statements down, I like to make sure I mark that in the picture. So I know if they're adjacent, they share a side and a vertex, and they don't overlap. And I know if they're supplementary, they're going to add up to 180, which means together, when they're adjacent, they're going to look like a line. Okay, I don't know where I should have put this line. For all I know, both sides are 90. They could both be equal. Okay, but one angle might be bigger than the other. They could be the same. I just kind of guessed. Okay, so then my next given is the measure of angle HMS equals 7x minus 3. So the measure of angle HMS equals 7x minus 3 degrees given. Now, I need to put that in my picture, but I didn't actually label my picture, right? So I have angle HMS and angle SMJ. So let's say I call this one angle S. Let's see, what do they have in common? They've got the S in common and the M in common. The M is in the middle, so that has to be my vertex. And then the S is in common, so that has to be on the shared side. So then I'm going to have my J on one side. I could have put it either way. And I'm going to have my H on the other side. Okay, so there's my two angles. HMS equals 7x minus 3. So HMS is 7x minus 3. Okay, and then my next one is the measure of angle SMJ equals 3x plus 13 degrees. And I'm going to add that to my picture over here. SMJ is 3x plus 13 degrees. That was given to me. Okay? All right, so when we did them just on paper without having to do a proof, I went straight to filling in the equation. But in a proof, we have to say how we knew we could put those numbers where we put them. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to write my equation based on the angle names. So since I know these two angles are adjacent, I know I can add them together and equal them to the whole angle, which although I don't have it in the picture, I know that since they're supplementary angles, I know that means 180. Okay, so I'm going to have the measure of angle HMS plus the measure of angle SMJ is going to equal 180 degrees. Now the hard part is figuring out what to put here. Is it because they're adjacent that I can add them together to equal 180, or is it because they're supplementary? If they were adjacent, then in my givens, it would have had to have told me that SMH, or JMH, is 180 degrees. So we can't use adjacent. We need to use the fact that it's supplementary, because that's how we know that they're going to look like this and that they're going to make 180 degrees. So what I write here then is we're using the definition of supplementary. So we really didn't need to know that they were adjacent. That's just kind of like extra information that helped us draw the picture. Okay, that's really not going to help us with our proof in this one, because anytime we have supplementary angles, we know they add together. All right, so now we can go through and substitute the values in that we know. I know that angle HMS can be replaced with the 7x minus 3. And when you substitute in values, you don't have to put the units. So I don't have to put the parentheses and the degrees. Plus, I can also substitute in here the measure of angle SMJ is going to be 3x plus 13. And that equals 180. And really, I didn't need to write that degrees there because in the equation, you don't have to write your units. And all we did here was we did substitution. Okay. All right, the next thing I need to do is I need to put together my x's and my constants. So I can see I've got 7x plus 3x. I have a negative 3 and a 13. So when I put those together, I did it on the same side of the equals. The right side did not get affected, so this is combining like terms. All right. The next thing I need to do is I need to move the 10 that doesn't have the x so that I can get the 10 with the x all by itself. And we normally don't write that in our proof. If you want to, you could do it real small right underneath to just kind of show you what you did. My next step would be 10x equals 180 minus 10 is 170. And I subtracted by 10 on both sides, so that's my subtraction. Property of equality, which just reminded me I forgot to put POE on my substitution. Remember, if you're going to abbreviate, I need to be able to see the difference between your substitution and your subtraction. Okay? All right, the next one, I need to get rid of this 10. So again, we normally don't see it in the actual proof, but if you want to write it real small right underneath what you're doing, we're going to divide by 10 on both sides. So I end up with x equals 170 divided by 10 is just 17. How did I get there? I divided by 10 on both sides. All right, so we're done. Yes, x equals 17, and that's what I was trying to, I'm trying to prove that the measure of angle HMS equals 116 degrees. So I'm not quite done yet. I know that angle HMS that I'm trying to prove equals 116. I know it equals 7x minus 3, and now I know what x is. So I can substitute the 17 into this equation. Okay? So I'm going to take this measure of angle HMS equals 7. I'm going to substitute in the 17 minus 3 degrees. And that was, again, substitution, property of equality. Okay, so now we can do this simplification of multiplication and then subtraction. We can do that in one step under the category of simplify. Okay, so I'm going to do 7 times 17, which is 119, and then I'm going to subtract 3 and get 116. The measure of angle HMS equals 116 degrees, and I just simplified this expression. Okay, so when I look back up at the top, I can see that I did prove what I was trying to prove. However, I do not have the word proof anywhere in the proof. All of this together is the proof. Okay, now normally I would say you also want to plug the 17 into this side so that you can add these two together and make sure they equal 180. But since I proved what I was trying to prove, I know that I must have done it correctly. Okay, so hopefully this gives you some help with your proof skills. All right, thank you so much for watching.